Hello Star Wars fans. Today I'm going to look at some of the commercial noise reduction plugins for After Effects and show you how you might use them to improve the quality of Team -1's Silver Screen Edition. One of the most common complaints I hear about the SSE is about how grainy it is, and I think that is because of scenes like this one. This is probably the second worst shot in terms of how grimy it looks in the whole film. We'll tackle the worst shot shortly. However, the fact is that if you saw this film in theaters in 1977 or in any of the cinema re-releases in the 1980s, you'll know that this is actually how it looked. I have access to 4 or 5 different 35mm prints of Star Wars on various film stocks, including 2 Technicolor prints, the LPP used for the SSE, and the red faded Eastman print we were looking at last time, and they all look like this. If you look at the scene on the 16mm and 8mm prints, it's there too. And even on the Laserdiscs and the VHS copies, despite their low resolution, you can still see traces of all these brown blobs. So there's no doubt in my mind this is how it looked in 1977. Is it supposed to look like this? Did George Lucas want it to look like this? I seriously doubt it. But by the time he got the film back from the lab, he was out of time and money, so this is how it looks. Now this is how it was for 2 decades, so we didn't want to fix it in the Silver Screen Edition. If we had done so, we would have been accused by many of the same sort of revisionism that Lucas himself is guilty of. But now that the original is out there, there is no reason why you can't fix it and make it the way you want to see it. So I'm here to show you how you can have your cake and eat it too. A lot of the footage used by Harmy to despecialize the official Blu-ray actually came from the 2006 bonus DVD, affectionately known as the Gout, which stands for George's Original Unaltered Trilogy. And he did some truly remarkable things to make that work seamlessly. But now that the Silver Screen Edition is out there, anyone with a little know-how can go ahead and despecialize the Blu-ray or swap out shots from Harmy's masterpiece with real 1080p Star Wars footage. Of course, just dropping this shot back in would be extremely jarring. Clearly it needs to be cleaned up. So with that in mind, let's jump right in and try to fix up 2 of the grungiest shots of the Silver Screen Edition and make them ready for their despecialized close-up. We'll start with this sandcrawler shot. A shot, by the way, that was completely replaced in the special edition. This is the special edition version. Which is fine, nothing wrong with that. I quite like it. But it wasn't in the original film. So if you wanted to put it back and you wanted to use silver screen footage to do so, this is what we have to play with. If we zoom in a little, you can see it doesn't really look like film grain. It's just weird floating brown blobs. And this sort of color noise is present in a lot of the scenes, particularly in the desert, but also on the Millennium Falcon. Perhaps it's the film stock used in the camera, or maybe there was a stocking or some kind of weird filter on the camera. Whatever it is, let's see if we can reduce it to a more tolerable level. Now, Revision FX offers 2 different noise reduction plugins for After Effects. The first one is simply called Denoise, and it works pretty well here with just the default settings. Show you what that looks like. Yeah, not too bad. The sandcrawler moves so slowly that this scene is almost static, and because there isn't a lot of motion, we can crank up the noise reduction a little without seeing any of the smearing or other problems that happen in high motion shots. With this effect on this shot, I don't know how much of it will come through on the screen capture, especially after YouTube recompresses it, but I'm not seeing a lot of changes here. So I double the threshold, looks the same. Put it back, looks the same. So, as you can see, that's about as good as it's going to get. And up it again. 14. It didn't make any difference. The second effect from Revision is called Denoise Frame Average. Zoom in. think it does a bit better, but this is the default setting. As you can see, the default setting not nearly so good. But you can hardly see it does anything at all. So if we increase this one to 40, much better. If we increase the frames before to 2, after 2, not really much difference. But certainly better than the original, and I think better than the regular denoise. The third effect by Revision FX that I want to show you is actually the deflicker effect. For some reason, this effect does a fantastic job of removing noise while preserving detail. However, if there's any kind of significant movement, there's horrible smearing. Here though, it works pretty well. I'll show you. Turn this one on. Looks about the same as the one we were just looking at. And this is the same whether you use Noise Clean Method 1 or 2. I don't actually see any difference between them. I'll zoom back out again. See, that actually looks quite nice. As I say, it looks exactly the same as their regular denoise. Now, Red Giant has a denoiser, which, as you can see, that's even better. All I did from the default was I changed this to film. It used to be video. Everything else is default. Before, after. I think that's really nice. Boris FX has a denoiser. Again, does a really nice job. Finally, there is Neat Video, which is also available for VirtualDub. I've been a customer of theirs since version 2.0 and all of their effects. Of all the effects we've tried so far, I think this is the best one out there, and it's the one I use the most. Let's turn that one on, see if there's a noticeable difference. I think so. Or should we zoom out? I look at that and I think that is ready to go straight into the Blu-ray footage. But watch what happens when we play it back. See the clouds? Looks like there's a heat haze in the clouds. I don't know if that shows up on your screen, but see how the clouds are wobbling? If we switch back to Boris, for example, better yet, Red Giant, Revision FX. None of the other effects are having this problem, so I don't know why Neat Video is struggling here. I've tried playing with all the settings. Doesn't make any difference. So for this scene, we're going to have to go with one of the others. I would go with, well, any of them really, apart from Neat Video in this case. Just once again, to compare that with the original. Before, and this is after. Let's move on to the next shot, which is the land speeder entering Mos Eisley. This is without a doubt the grungiest shot in the whole movie. So right off the bat, let's show you the before and the after. This is the silver screen edition. As it went out. Again, lots of brown blobs. And let me show you the after. Now this time the Neat Video plugin came through, and I think it did the best job in this case of all of them, probably because of all the motion. You'll notice I also did some color correction, and I added a little film grain too. Now, I think that looks really good given the source. I don't think we lost any detail. In fact, I think we gained detail, particularly looking at that tower. Now, if you watched Mike Verter's video on the same shot, you'll notice that he managed to recover more detail, but then he was working with a 4K scan of a Technicolor print, while this is from a 2K scan of the LPP, which was itself a duplicate made from another 35mm print. So unfortunately, the power lines that are visible in the Blu-ray, and somewhat recovered in the Legacy edition, were not recovered here. There are power lines or cables running between these towers, but we can't see them anymore. Going from here to here, I think this looks fabulous. But then you look at the Blu-ray, and while there are obviously a lot of issues with the Blu-ray version, CGI dinosaurs, the speeder is at the bottom completely sliced off. I don't know if you noticed that. See, they fixed the shadow and they got rid of the discoloration, but in doing so, they chopped off the whole of the bottom of the speeder. And the colors, well, they're just hideous. But there's no denying that the level of detail and sharpness is a huge step up here. But again, for the Blu-ray, they were able to recomposite many of the original elements directly from the camera negatives, so that's to be expected. Now, I ran this shot through Dr. Dre's color balance tool and created a LUT. And if we apply that, it makes the colors look a little more natural at least. It looks like on the Blu-ray they worked very hard to remove that smear of Vaseline on the camera lens. If you watch the Blu-ray version, there's no smearing here. And the worst problem is probably behind this dinosaur, which is probably why they put it there. But you can see they were able to clean up the droid too. If we turn that off and look at ours, see how smeared he is? In fact, running it back, see this kind of shadow here? It moves with the camera, which means it's probably on the camera, or it's a shadow, I don't know. No, it must be on the camera, because here it is, see right here? And then it stops when the camera stops. But you can see there must be a smear of Vaseline that goes along the bottom here, which is why he's all blurry. Obviously designed to hide the wheels. And there are two basic kinds of cleanup techniques. Spatial cleaning recruits nearby pixels from the same frame, and temporal cleaning, which uses pixels from the previous and the next frame. Let's look at the gout version. See how this guy's foot has disappeared? That's because they ran an automatic noise reduction algorithm on this footage back in 1993. It wasn't very sophisticated. It looked at the frame before, and it looked at the frame after, and because of the camera pan, his foot isn't on the frame before or the frame after, so it got erased. And this happens as he moves along. See, right here you can see they took his leg from the previous frame and it got erased right here. And his legs are practically transparent. In fact, all of him just turned transparent. Did you see that? You can see through him. He's the invisible man. Neat video though. Did not have that problem. You can see his legs the whole way. So technology's come a long way since 1993. But let's turn off the neat video one and you remember that deflicker one I told you about? Let me show you that one. Same sort of problem, you see. Does a great job on the background and the static elements. But there's all kinds of weird stuff going on around the movement. And that's essentially what happened when they made the 1993 master. So this is the regular denoise. Let's compare before. Oh, well, let me turn off the adjustment layer with the color correction. So this is before, this is after. See, there's some noise is reduced, but also the bits that are in motion seem to have been smoothed considerably. Let's look at the other one. Gain about the same, I think. In fact, can you even see a difference when I turn it on and turn it off? Okay. Before noise reduction. After noise reduction. Before, after, before, after. With the default setting of 20, doesn't seem to make a lot of difference. Off, on. Now if we up this to 40, whoa, now we're getting some smearing. 40 is what we used on the sandcrawler shot, but we can't use it here because of the motion. In fact, I think 25 is as far as we can go. But that's still pretty grimy looking compared to neat video. We already looked at this one, which is the deflicker. Did a pretty good job on the background in spite of the panning motion, but you can see an echo right here. And obviously this. So let's move on to Red Giant. Not nearly as impressive here as it was on the sandcrawler. It's not smearing, but let's see, we increase the levels. Yeah, it smooths out. Do we lose his foot? No. So that one's pretty good. Boris FX. Looks like we lost some detail there. Definitely losing some detail. So in this case, neat video all the way. It does look a little too smooth, I gotta be honest. Well, it's cleaned it up nicely. You know, kind of thinking that people look a little plasticky. Perhaps we can reduce the amount here. Well, That brings some dirt back, but they still look plasticky to me. But if we turn our adjustment layer on, add some film grain in there. This adjustment layer just has the LUT that I created for the color correction and the film grain. Not sure we need that. But anyway, there you have it. Clearly there is room for improvement even with the silver screen edition. I recommend Neat Video, or actually the Boris FX and the Red Giant and the Revision FX. They're all pretty good. Some of them work better than others for motion, high motion scenes like this one. As we saw, oddly, the Neat Video one didn't work on the low motion one, but it worked extremely well on the high motion one. So having more than one of these plugins in your toolkit is very wise for dealing with these situations, and you can also mix and match. If you use, say the Revision plugin, you can use that for like a first pass and then use Neat Video over the top. Then you won't get the cloud situation. But anyway, that's about it for today. I look forward to seeing your new projects featuring repurposed silver screen edition footage.